Today's podcast looks at the ballad The Wife of Usher's Well. I'll look at the publishing history and sing samples of the song, and end on a complete performance of one of the songs. There lived a wife at Usher's Well, and a wealthy wife was she. She had 3 stout and stalwart sons, and she sent them o'er the sea. They had not been a week from her, a week but barely one, when word came to the Carlin wife that her 3 sons were gone. They had not been a week from her, a week but barely 3, when word came to the Carlin wife that her sons she'd never see. I wish the wind may never cease, nor fashes in the flood, till my 3 sons come home to me, in earthly flesh and blood. It fell about the Martinmas, when nights were long and murk, the Carlin wife's 3 sons came home, their hats were of the birk. That tune and words came from Walter Scott, and the words were printed in Minstrelsy of the Scottish Borders in 1802. A mother sends her sons across the sea to school, only to find out later they've died. She grieves their loss and curses the wind and the seas for their return. They do return as physical ghosts and convince her to let them rest in peace. This ballad was already fading from the repertoires of British singers towards the end of the 18th century, when the ballad was first collected. The ballad has had a wider and more active life in North America, where it would have been taken over by the emigrants of the 17th and 1800s. The British versions are limited to 7 samples of text and 3 tunes. The earliest sample was a text collected from an old woman in Kirkhill in West Lothian, and printed in 1802 in Minstrelsy of the Scottish Borders, edited by Walter Scott. Scott later provided a tune in his 1830s collection, The Poetic Works of Sir Walter Scott. A version of the text was also collected in Shropshire in 1882 by Charlotte Sophie Byrne. That was the sole knowledge of the ballad until the 20th century, when 5 more variations were noted by collectors from the Folksong Society. The lack of the early noting of the ballad makes it difficult to determine its origin and gives very little to make comparisons. There is no recognisable physical area that can be associated with Usher's Well. It may be a non-place. By that I mean a ballad device where a name is used for a non-existent dwelling that can be reused in other ballads, for example the Silver Woods, a generic woodland setting, or Strawberry Town, which has been used in some versions of The Murdered Servant Man and in versions of Lady Maisry. "Why don't you eat, dear children," she says, "why don't you make some cheer? Since has it been ever so long since we have seen you here? How can we eat, dear mother," they said, "how can we make any cheer, when you would not let our sweet souls rest at heaven when we were there?" Up did crow the milk-white cock, then up did crow the red. "Ain't that a pity," they all said, "that the quick should part from the dead?" The text and tune were collected by Janet Blunt in 1812 from the Vicar of Swerford in Oxfordshire. An almost identical tune and words were collected by Vaughan Williams from Mrs. Loveridge of Dilwyn in Herefordshire. Some scholars think that naming the lady as a Carlin wife might indicate that she was a witch or well-schooled in magic. She curses the sea for the loss and vows she will not believe in God till such times as her sons return to her. Around Martinmas time, that's the 11th of November, the sons return to their home, but they are physical revenants of the dead children who have links to their graves. They wear hats made of birch bark to show that they have been to the gates of heaven. The birch protects the living from the dead. The mother prepares a feast for their return, but they're not living beings and are unable to eat or drink earthly food. But when the cock crows and the dawn light is rising, they must leave to return to their grave. For the cocky crows a merry morning, and the wildfowl biddeth the day, and the psalms of heaven will be sung, and we'll be missed away. For the cocky crows a merry morning, the wildfowl biddeth the day, and the gates of heaven will be shut, and we'll be missed away. But she's flown between them and the door like any baited bear, and they've all three flown o'er her head like wildfowl of the air. Farewell, farewell, our own mother dear, farewell to barn and byre, and fare thee well, our little sister, that tends our mother's fire. The tune and words were collected by James Madison Carpenter from Mrs. Annie Kidd of Glenyathon in Rothinorman in Scotland. The text collected in Britain all conform to some extent with the version printed by Walter Scott. The American versions have been changed to tie in reference to Christian beliefs and later perceptions of life and death from the American Christian concept. The version collected in 1882 by Charlotte Sophie Byrne, printed in her book Shropshire Folklore under the title of The Widow Woman, extends the ending of the ballad, and has the three sons, who are named Joe, Peter and John, leading their mother down a green road to a foul chaperone, possibly the gates of heaven. Jesus of Nazareth opens the door to allow the sons to walk in, but he refuses entrance to their mother, telling her she has 9 days to repent for the wickedness she's done. At the end of the 9 days, Jesus calls her and takes her into heaven. This is a very interesting ballad with 3 singable tunes. The tunes in the American versions of the ballad have a wider range and are often used by the British singers together with the text from Walter Scott to make a fine performance. I will end this podcast with that version of The Wife of Usher's Well as printed in Walter Scott's Minstrelsy of the Scottish Borders. There lived a wife at Usher's Well, and a wealthy wife was she. She had 3 stout and stalwart sons, and she sent them o'er the sea. They had not been a week from her, a week but barely one, when word came to the carline wife that her 3 sons were gone. They had not been a week from her, a week but barely 3, when word came to the carline wife that her sons she'd never see. I wish the wind may never cease, nor fashes in the flood, till my 3 sons come home to me, in earthly flesh and blood. It fell about the Martinmas, when nights were long and murk, the carline wife's 3 sons came home, their hats were of the birk. It neither grew in sky nor ditch, nor yet in any shove, but at the gates of paradise that birk grew fair enough. Blow up the fire, my maidens fair, bring water from the well, for all my house shall feast this night, since my 3 sons are well. And she has made to them a bed, she made it long and wide. She's ta'en her mantle about, and sat at their bedside. Then up and crew the red, red cock, and up and crew the grey. The eldest to the youngest said, "'Tis time we were away." The cock he hadn't crowed but once, and clapped his wings and all. The youngest to the eldest said, "Brother, we must awa." The cock doth crow, the day doth daw, the chattering worm doth chide, and we'll be missed out of our place, a sore pain we must bide. Fare ye well, my mother dear, farewell to barn and byre, and fare ye well, thou bonny lass, that kindles my mother's fire.